Deliciously pulpy horror storytelling was at the heart of the original Alan Wake.
This is another preview of
but the
everything.
Stephen Kingisms look to be confined to the dark place, the New York-style nightmare cage the
People are
titular
comparing
writer was
this,
trapped
they're
in,
saying this is a
or at least what
Resident
seems
Evil
like the real world, the domain
wannabe
of our
right
second
now.
protagonist, FBI agent Saga
Resident Evil
Anderson.
4
Developer Remedy
wannabe.
Entertainment has crafted a
Alan
new
Wake
collage
has
from
his own
pieces of its
story
favorite
though.
detective stories. The eerie shadows
Like
of True
Resident Evil
Detective,
have their own
Seven, and the
story.
Silence of the Lambs creep through Alan Wake 2's gorgeous digital depiction of the Pacific Northwest.
Right in the dome.
For this month's IGN First, I visited Remedy's studio in Finland to play Alan Wake 2. Across more than an hour of play, I experienced the entirety of Local Girl, the third chapter of Saga's story. Within it, I saw plenty of things that will make long-term Alan Wake devotees happy. Manuscripts still litter the world, as do blue thermos flasks. There are generators to power up, and your shadow-burning flashlight is still a fundamental part of combat. A pair of aging rock stars make a very
The flashlight has a battery.
and Odin are not
I think that's like before.
Old tricksters always sneaking off.
But the shift from nightmare horror to grisly detective thriller on Saga's side of the story is
So
the
this
first
is
sign
more
of the
of a
bold
detective
changes that Remedy has made in
part,
its long-awaited
more of a
sequel.
detective
Where the 2010
than
original
Resident
was a
Evil.
relentless action game dressed in a Halloween costume, Alan Wake 2 is a full-bore survival horror. It comes complete with puzzles, exploration, backtracking, and a crime fiction library's worth of creeping dread. It feels like almost every element of Alan Wake's gameplay has been reinvented. And, from what I can tell thus far, it's all for the
he
better.
has something.
Local Girl
in his
begins
back.
with Saga arriving
So
in
you could
Watery,
probably
a town
blow up.
established by Finnish settlers. It's just down the road from the original Alan Wake setting of Bright Falls.
I
It
actually
carries a
like
similar
that-
David Lynch vibe. Quaint,
that
but
vibe,
off-kilter.
that
In these opening
80s,
minutes, it's clear that Alan Wake 2 is unlike
like,
any other game
out-of-town
Remedy has made
vibe.
before. There's no
It
urgency
gives
as I
you more
wander
of a
down Main
spooky
Street,
look.
chatting with the locals about a nearby trailer park, a lead in my wider investigation into the cult of the tree. The
And this
story's
is coming
leading
out
threat.
in
But while this
October,
may be
I think
slower
it
paced
is.
than Remedy's previous action romps, it's no less
I think they
weird.
should drop it
Everyone
October
seems to already know
31st.
who I am, despite this being Saga's first
I forgot what
visit
day
to
it is. I
Watery.
think it's
And Artie is
October
performing a rousing
17th that it's
number at
coming
the
out.
local cafe. Yes,
I know it's
Artie,
coming
the
around.
janitor from Control.
I think with. Look at the janitor from Control.
I don't know if the coffee here is damn fine, but the atmosphere certainly is.
Oh, the road's flooded. But if you just follow this trail behind me, it'll lead you there.
A chat with entrepreneurial oddballs the Koskela brothers puts me on the trail of some spare keys for the trailer park, which are locked up in the gift shop of Coffee World, a local theme park. My journey there reveals that Alan Wake 2's world is built entirely different from its predecessor. Rather than the A to B shooting galleries that made up the original game, Watery is an open hub of snaking forest trails that can be freely explored and backtracked through. This has affected the scenario design. Across the duration of the chapter, my objectives take me back and forth, discovering and revisiting locations as new items and information expand the story.
I'll play along for now. I need the key to that trailer.
If the opening walk through Watery presents an air of Silent
So
Hill,
I was
then this
reading
later
that
approach positions Alan Wake 2 close to
in
Resident
her
Evil,
mind,
which has long
she has
used
like
its
an
police
office.
stations and villages in a similar manner. That relationship is further emphasized by the abundance of puzzles. As I get closer to Coffee World, I stumble across a number of containers, each locked by a brain teaser with a difficulty level that scales in correlation with the rewards inside. I find a basic supply chest that's protected by a simple memory minigame, but later discover a lockbox containing a powerful crossbow. Cracking it requires a close study of the surrounding environment, as the bolts embedded in the nearby targets are clues to the padlock's combination.
Looks like they're tools of the trade.
I appreciate this more involved and ambiguous approach over Resident Evil's tradition of using an unusual item as a key, although that design does still make an appearance later in the chapter. The touch of Resident Evil can also be found in Alan Wake 2's combat encounters, which are framed
You
from
see
an
they're
almost
comparing it to
identical
Resident
camera
Evil.
angle and have the remake's same snappy, stressful gunplay. There's a grisly wound system too, that opens up wet cavities with each gunshot. But that familiar foundation is blended with more original Remedy ideas. The dodge returns from the first game, so ducking beneath hurled hatchets and melee swipes is still part of the rhythm. And then there's the core of Alan Wake's DNA, the flashlight. Enemies are still cloaked in shadow, which must be burned away with the beam of your torch before bullets will inflict damage. It's great to see that unique mechanic return, not only for its ties to the lore, but also because it provides a distinct, tension-laced two-step approach
Now,
to every
my
enemy.
question is, what year is this
Yes.
taking on?
At the
in
same
their-
time,
in
it's
that
equally great to
universe.
see what Remedy has dropped from its original formula. The encounters in this demonstration mission are a far cry from the relentless waves of enemies that populated the first game. Instead, moments of violence are spaced much further apart and involve just one or two
3 or
assailants.
2024,
a single foe is a significant
and the flashlight is running out of
challenge.
battery.
It makes fights feel scrappy and desperate. A hurricane
I
of
don't know, I'm
adrenaline
gonna
where
start
every
questioning
round
that,
counts.
because now we
The
got a
journey to
flashlight
Coffee World
that
is
will
host to
last
just
like
2 of these
an
encounters.
eternity.
It seems like much of Alan Wake 2's horror is built on the nervous anticipation of violence rather than combat itself. More enemies lie in wait between the rides and stalls of the fairground, but the real battle here is one of the mind. Because on Saga's side of the story, Alan Wake 2 is not just a survival horror, it's a detective game too. We are playing an FBI agent after all, and so Remedy has built a small collection of bespoke systems to support that investigative fantasy. As I explore Watery, I gather an increasing pile of clues and evidence. Saga does not automatically make sense of these clues. Instead, they must be deciphered in the Mind Place, a mental representation of an FBI office in Saga's head.
You see,
Here you can profile people that you
I
met
did
to
read
learn
that.
more about them, and arrange clues on a caseboard to
I
make
wonder if they're gonna
connections
have a
and
little
unlock new mission
strategy
objectives.
guide.
In the most simplistic terms, this is a
That'd be
match the
fun.
card to the right location puzzle. Evidence that explains a person's motive goes in the motive section of the board, for example, and cannot be placed anywhere else. The version of the system that I used for this preview was, unfortunately, a little clunky. The interface and UI prompts were slightly unintuitive, and occasionally I found that evidence wouldn't fit where it logically should do, forcing me
mind
to
me,
just
I'm
try
only,
every
like,
option
on
until
4
the clue
hour
stuck.
of
It
sleep.
wasn't particularly satisfying, but before I left the studio, Remedy was already using my feedback to fine-tune the caseboard. Hopefully it's in a better place in time for release. When it works though, I can see the value in the mechanic. I arrive at Coffee World's gift shop only to discover that a locked door prevents me from picking up the keys to the trailer park. Using the caseboard, I'm able to piece together notes that I find on a pinboard. A previous jammed lock was released using a screwdriver, and a maintenance man reports having recently fixed the percolator ride.
I wonder
The
where's
clues
her
combine
office,
to trigger a new
the
objective.
FBI
Find the
office.
screwdriver used by the
That
maintenance
looks kind of
man,
rinky
and
dinky
use it
for
to
an
break the gift
FBI
shop's
office.
lock.
Using screwdrivers to break into gift shops isn't exactly standard procedure.
This admittedly
Oh,
isn't
Lord.
genuine detective work such as that seen in games like Paradise Killer and Return of the Obra Dinn, but the approach does provide the sense of your actions pushing the case forward and opening up new lines of investigation. And while the gift shop lock is a very simple example, I can see the board being vital to the much larger Cult of the Tree case,
I love the
where there
fact
will
that when
likely
you
be
shoot the
substantially
cup,
more
it
leads and
breaks.
categories of evidence. The board breaks all that down into clear components and allows you to easily track its individual threads. That's helpful from a narrative perspective, and hopefully it will feel fulfilling when it comes to the detective roleplay of it all too. The detective work, map design, scrappy combat encounters, and slower, tense
See,
pace
they
of
got
Alan Wake
something in
2
the back,
make
maybe
it a
you could
very
blow it
different
up.
proposition from
Right
its
there.
predecessor. In fact, from what I've seen across both my hands-on time and the demo shown at Gamescom last month, it feels like Remedy may be making one of the most radical sequels in video game history. While I love the studio's action game pedigree, this new experiment with survival horror so far
I
feels
wonder if
like
you
the
have to
approach
shoot
Alan
all the
Wake was
shadows.
always meant to take. It's cerebral, grimy, atmospheric, and bursting with character. I can't wait to turn the page and find out what's lurking in the next chapter.
Oh, she did blow it up.
For more Alan Wake 2, check out this extended
Well, thank you for
gameplay
tuning
video
in. Don't
and
forget
keep
to
it
press
locked
that
to
like
IGN
button
first throughout the
and share the
entire month
videos.
of September.
Thank you.
The grind all day. Mine say change, I'm just trying to get paid. I've been on the grind all day. Mine say change, I'm just trying to get paid. Just go with it. Just go get it. They too slow with it. They too slow. Keep it going, I won't stop.